Well, I could do that. That's the center.
Yeah, we use it.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, but just need to put that new description.
Good evening, I'm District Secretary Nancy Campbell Hatfield. It's Tuesday, February 17th, 2015, and this is the regular meeting of the Dublin San Ramon Services District Board of Directors. Presiding this evening is President Ed Duarte.
Yes, being that we're continuing on from the special board meeting, we'll skip the flag salute, but for the record, you could do the roll call, please.
Okay. Director Von Leopold. Here. Director Benson. Here. Director Halpern.
Here.
Vice President Howard.
Here.
President Duarte.
Here.
Thank you.
Special announcements after this. Public comment, again, the invitation is out to anyone in the audience to speak before the board on a matter that is not within the jurisdiction of tonight's agenda. No speakers. Reports.
Yes, President Duarte and members of the board, try to be very brief. Tonight, Friday, February 20th, this week at 9 o'clock, we're going to have a tour of the wastewater treatment plant. City Council members Carla Brown and Kathy Aaron will be touring the facility. I understand that Directors Benson and Howard at least indicated you'd be available to join. Given that both of those two ladies are also on the Pleasanton liaison committee with you at that meeting, that's going to constitute a liaison meeting, so we'll get the agenda posted for that. So if anybody else wanted to attend, then it also becomes a special board meeting for the DSRSD. So if anybody else wants to attend, please let us know so we can post it.
Is anyone else planning? Nobody else? I guess not.
Secondly, on Sunday and Monday, March 22nd and 23rd, about a month from now, Aqua is going to be holding its Region 5 meeting. This one might be interesting. It's going to be a tour and a series of presentations that will focus on Santa Clara Valley Water District's advanced water purification center. It is a Sunday and Monday tours on Sunday afternoon. The presentations on Monday. You can go to one and vote. Please let us know if you would like us to make reservations. My calendar will allow that. So we have Nancy.
I'll go.
I'm sorry. The 22nd and 23rd of March. So that's enough. Next item is Thursday, March 26th, that same week actually, the Elmwood County Special Districts Association is having their annual dinner, same location in Pleasanton. That'll be their 25th anniversary dinner, so I think there's some plans in work for us, perhaps funding the vehicle, again, please let us know if you want to make reservations. I think they're trying to get a little anniversary. And lastly, I'd like to thank Fedora for sitting in and being a great interim engineering services manager. Tonight's your last night here. You're, of course, more than welcome to exactly. Required to.
Let me take a break for a while.
I'd like to thank you for just jumping in and doing a great job.
Thank you for the offer.
And lastly, in terms of correspondence, we actually received one piece of correspondence before the last board meeting. We had a little computer hiccup, so I wasn't able to report it to you. We didn't actually pop up where you can see it until the next morning. It was dated, it's an email dated Tuesday, February 3rd, 2015 from Sashi Gadam, subject account setup charges. Email. We've already responded to it and copied the board on the response. We didn't already consider the election for 2 weeks of the circumstances. If anybody had any thoughts on it or wanted to have us all correspond in any different way, please let us know. I think the gentleman's order has been satisfied. That's all I have to report.
Good.
I'll just make a precautionary mention under 54952.3 of the Brown Act, that the district's day of service policy does not permit the payment of more than one stipend for a meeting per day. So we're good under Brown Act.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, item B, agenda management.
Nothing at this moment.
Okay, item 6C, committee reports, the Tri-Valley Water Agency Policy Roundtable. As was mentioned earlier in the special board meeting, the entire board happened to attend this meeting, but our two delegates are Rich and Jean. So,
I actually was going to wait till the board member items to do it. But if you want, we can do it now. Makes no difference to me. Do you have anything specific?
I think you covered it.
We pretty much covered it. It got, it got down to, after a series of 4 tables with maybe 10 to 11 people each, we've got down to reliability and alternatives, having other diversification of the portfolio, and that's pretty much where it's been going all the time. And now it's just a matter of who we all will work with, what will work independently, and that'll end up being the topic of the next meeting.
Counselor, in keeping with the Brown Act, I mentioned that all of us were there, but 3 of us were there as public observers, so notice that meeting. Approval of the minutes.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the last board meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. On the consent calendar, we have items 8A, rejection of claim on the insurance as subject to Mr. Chang, and item 8B, accept the bill following regular and recurring reports.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar, items 8A and B. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9A, self-management.
Yes, President Duarte and members of the board, this is the item that you see before you at every board meeting. This is an opportunity for you to talk about the drought management plan program as it's put together, and gives the public a chance to speak to you as well. Staff believes it's working very well, and of course, we haven't changed it. It's basically the same program going forward into 2015. As soon as we have some finality of what the water supply looks like in the March, April, May timeframe, April, May timeframe, we can come back and make some recommended changes. The program, I would remind you, extends through to this year.
Good. Questions or comments?
No, but I'm just, everybody agrees that we just
Continue on.
continue on?
Here's your direction. 9B.
President Duarte and members of the board, the next item is very similar to that. It's really a report on the water supply and demand report. We continue to be actually operating below 2014 levels in terms of our demand. If you remember, January 2014 was particularly dry as well, but now people's level of awareness grows. So I think we've kind of put in some more conservation, so after running better than we were in 2014. Of course, the water supply itself is really too early to say with finality, but we did have one good storm before Christmas, and we had a storm that kind of petered out, unfortunately, that kind of petered out in the early February timeframe, but January was very dry, and the Weather Service, one of the report I heard is that they're not predicting any rain through the end of February. So things are not looking very good right now, but 1 or 2 good storms can certainly turn things around. The other thing I would note, and I mentioned it earlier, is we just today received our preliminary approval of our 2015 treated water request from Zone 7, basically a continuation of the water pattern of water deliveries from 2014. So no change there, but they said they'll consider revisions once the water meter comes to the building.
So what is that, 10, 20?
No, no, it's the same as last time, so 25% with 50 to 60% reductions in this one. Thank you for
Need a motion?
to accept that.
Moved and seconded to accept item 9B, the water supply and demand and drought response action report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. 9C, asset management program.
Evening, President Board and members of the board. In light of the board looking at 10-year and 2-year study in the near future, we thought we would present our asset management program at this board meeting to show the board how the asset management program is being incorporated into the preparation of the 10-year and the 2-year CIP. Jerry Lee is in the audience and he will be presenting the program. He has been working diligently to capture information about our circulation system and our water distribution system, and he will be presenting some very interesting information tonight. And the information that he will be presenting to you is what we are using as we prepare the 10-year and 2-year CIP. So I will turn it over to you.
Dora, President Duarte, members of the board. I'm happy to be here again. Tell you a little bit more about asset management and how the program feeds into the capital improvement program and ultimately into our long-term financial planning. Just another little piece of the puzzle in terms of how it all works together. So I'm going to fly through this really quickly in deference to the amount of time already spent this evening. So if there's something you want to stop and talk about, please do so. Otherwise, you can always catch me afterwards or ask questions afterwards, or we can come back another time. So with that, the asset management stems out of three major statements in our district strategic plan related to the financial stability, developing an asset management program, and implementing that asset management program. Basics of asset management for CIP and planning are knowing what assets you have, what your inventory are, what the condition they're in, and from that, then you get some idea of when you might need to replace or rehabilitate them. Develop a strategy for that renewal or replacement, and have some cost projections. And when you have all that together, then you've got a chance to look at where you're going to need to be in terms of finances and revenues into the future. Just as a little bit of a background, here are the sort of the net values of a year or so ago that John Archer gave me in terms of our local sewers, probably about 31 million, water distribution 146 million, regional treatment plant 144 million. And these numbers drove a little bit in terms of priorities, how we looked at things. Partly because we were concerned, I am concerned, what keeps me awake at night is what we don't know. And what's underground is a lot what we don't know. And the sewer and the water distribution system have a lot of assets that are underground. The treatment plant is very important, and we will be getting to that eventually. In fact, we'll be making some progress on that this year. But we have a lot of people looking at those above ground facilities and maintaining them on a regular basis. So those, I worry less about because we know people are looking at them and caring for them. So we've paid more attention to the local sewer and now the water distribution system to date. And so I'm going to talk more about those in the next few minutes than the treatment plant, although I will talk a little bit about what we have in the future. Just as a little bit of background, we have relatively young systems in sense of age. The average age of our water pipes in the system are about 20 years. The average age of our sewer, about 27 years. The life expectancy of water pipes, pipes in general are going to range from anywhere 50 to 100 years, depending on the types of materials used. And so relative to that, if you look at, maybe we have an average age of our pipes, our average life expectancy of maybe 75 years. So when you look at the fact that they're only 20 and 27 years, they're relatively young in their life overall. Now, that doesn't mean that they're all going to last that long. Some are going to fail early, some are going to fail later, because just the randomness of things. And so because we have some that have been in the ground for 55 years already, we could be looking at some things coming up in the near future, and I'll show you a little bit more in a minute. So asset management, a little bit of the process. Again, we talk about what's the inventory, what information we need, size, length, materials, replacement cost, year installed, condition assessment, remaining useful life, and replacement years. So we have all that, and we have been working to get that in. We put that into a database, and then when we finish a work order, that information goes into the database. We can then run reports, run analysis to find out what are the high risk and likely ones to fail. With that, then we do an engineering review, come up with specific projects, and along with that, some projects, some pipes we know are going to need some sort of action, but they're smaller and we're not specific as to which ones those might be. So we throw those into a program. Those numbers are dollars. They feed into the long-term financial plan update that John will be working on here fairly soon. I'm going to talk quickly about the sewer system. Here's a little information about what our sewer system looked like in terms of the amount of feet installed per year. This is beginning in, the big peak occurred in the 60s. You saw another peak in the 80s, and then the big spike occurred in the 90s and the 2000s. So what does that mean in terms of replacement? Well, as you can expect, when those things start to wear out, we're going to have some additional spikes that are going to reflect into this curve. And so basically, this is what looking in the future looks like as far as replacement on the sewer system. As you can see, we're going to have very likely we're going to have a spike that's going to occur sometime in the near future. Right now, that looks like that spike is somewhere about 15 years out. That's why we're watching the condition of those sewers very closely. And so as we get more and more information, we'll be able to tell whether that is really going to hit us there or whether we can push it out further. Very likely some of them are going to come in earlier, some of them later. But basically, in somewhere in the neighborhood of about a 15-20 year period, we're going to probably have a spike in the amount of money we're going to need to spend in terms of replacement or rehabilitation. So I want to give you a little bit of background. So we use that information to give us a better idea as far as what specific projects we might want to do. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about a large diameter sewer project we did recently. And that looked like, let's see if I can do this. We have two major trunk lines that come from the plant, lead into Dublin. Started treatment will lead into Dublin and down Village Parkway, and another, the old Camp Park trunk that leads into Easter Dublin. We were concerned about the large diameter pipes that were built out of concrete pipe 50, 60 years ago. So we did a study, did an evaluation of these pipes. We got some information that I wanted to let me show you a little bit of what came out of that. Okay. What came out of that, we found some pipes that had, these are concrete pipes, and these little spots I'm pointing to are exposed reinforcing bars in the top of the pipe. So we're getting some corrosion. This means that we're going to be needing to do some rehabilitation on this, and this has led to some of the projects you're going to see later on. a little bit more about what it looks like. We have some falling concrete. When we did it, we did not only just a CCTV, we did a sonar evaluation that gives us the amount of debris that's below the water line, and we also did a laser that tells us a little bit about how much the pipe is out of round, and that gives us some idea of how much corrosion is taking place. So here's an example of one that shows about 1 inch of corrosion that's taking place in the crown of pipe. So with that information, it's going to help us make better decisions in terms of what we want to do in the future.
How thick is the pipe?
Pardon me?
How thick is the pipe?
The pipe is in the neighborhood of about 3 to 4 inches thick. It varies, depends on the type of wall thickness, the size of pipe, etc.
Diameter?
Say a 36 inch.
Oh, wow.
This is a good example of a laser image that shows us we had a broken pipe. So the laser is really going to be a great asset in terms of being able to make analysis, perform analysis on these lines. Okay, so out of that, what's it led to? So here are projects we've identified in that same large diameter pipes. We've got a project identified that will essentially rehabilitate all the major trunks up into Dublin along Village Parkway to the point where I think it'll be okay for this 10-year cycle. But essentially, these gaps in between are areas where the pipes has either already been rehabilitated or replaced or in pretty good shape. So that's essentially what this has led to, and these pipes are in the 10-year plan. Here's what the cost associated with the analysis we went through in the asset management program. You can see that with the first few years we'll have a little bit more and it tapers off. I'll get more and talk a little bit more in a minute about that. On the water system.
Can I ask a question? When you talk about the concrete pipes,
Yes.
are you talking rehabilitation or replacement?
We're looking at rehabilitation of those right now.
So like in situ form or some kind of?
Some type, well, it'll be some type,
liner?
yeah, most likely. That's what we put into the budget for now. So on the water system, we have a similar pattern, high growth, lots of utilities put in the 60s, again in the 90s, big growth. And essentially what happens is with the pipes having their life expectancy 1,500 years old, our curve for replacement looks very similar. Out somewhere around 15 years, we're very likely to have another spike in terms of replacement. So we use that information in concert with some others. This one here, the graphic shows, and this is the central part of Dublin. This is the Alameda County line here. What we've done is we've combined the break history that we have, these little dots all over the break history. This green line here is a corrosion area that we know about, and then we combine it with some soils information. We put all that together with what we did. I talked about, I think last fall, about a acoustic water testing. These were pipes that we tested. The red ones were the ones that showed more deterioration. We combined all that information and said, well, we probably ought to put some pipes, some project together, and this is what resulted. We wound up with, this is that same area we saw that we did acoustic testing, and then there's another area we have some known break areas. And so these are now in the CIP as well, that you'll be seeing, I think in 2 weeks. I think there's a workshop on that, something in that order. And this is some graphics that you'll probably see at the presentation on the workshop. Basically, the numbers, you remember how I showed you that one capital improvement program for the sewer? These are the CIP numbers that are going to be presented in a couple of months, and you notice how they, or a couple of weeks. And the numbers that were presented in that other chart are included in these numbers here. These are a little bit higher because they include other types of projects like the courtyard and some other sort of shared costs that hit the funds. So this is more than just replacement or rehabilitation costs. And similarly on the water system, this is what you'll be seeing in a couple of weeks in terms of the proposed capital improvement program. Now, on the treatment plant, just to give you a quick summary, we have done condition assessments at this point. They help provide information on the secondary clarifier rehabilitation program. We are going to be taking primary sedimentation tanks down and doing some condition assessments on those. We've developed a master schedule for process shutdowns. Will help us do condition assessments when we take a tank down or some other type of major facility. And what we plan to do in the future with the master plan for the treatment plant and biosolids, we've built in the scope major asset condition assessments, some rehabilitation replacement costs that will help support some of the rate analysis, and then some critical asset analysis. I've breezed through this very quickly, but that is essentially the end of my presentation. If you have any more questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Not a question, just a comment. As always, great presentation. I'm glad to hear about this a couple times a year. This is evidence of looking forward and not waiting for problems to happen, but actually trying to identify them. And I'm very glad we're actually closing the loop down. I'm assuming our formulas for reserves will get more intelligent.
They will. We're taking some new looks at how we do that too.
Well, I think what this shows you is that the importance of the condition assessments and really monitoring as we start to approach those peaks in the next 10 to 15 years, and doing things in advance so that we don't have to try to mitigate those major peaks to the extent we can, both on a evaluation level and then on a rate and financing level.
Am I correct in assuming that all of the testing you've done for condition assessment, we've done with our own equipment and forces in-house?
The large diameter CCTV work, no, we contracted for that. And then the acoustic testing, we contracted for that. Because those are specialized equipment, et cetera, that we don't have.
Equipment's very expensive. Very good.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll make it one page. Thank you again for the excellent presentation. Good proactive management. Item 9D.
President Barton and members of the board, just like Gary said, we're going to try to get through this one fairly quickly, given the hour and how much material we get to, but we don't want to rush you through it. Anything that is important to you, we can certainly spend as much time as you want on it, or, we schedule it for a more in-depth discussion at a later date. But this is an outgrowth of the question that Director Leopold asked. And it's related to the job. It's exactly how is water supply planning and development planning, how does it get coordinated? And why are we, essentially, why are we still issuing water permits in the middle of the drought? That's really the one question. Well, this is a highly abbreviated, there's a lot of slides here, it's highly abbreviated. There are volumes and volumes and volumes of material about how this process goes forward. We comply with all of those. So I'm going to try to keep it at a high level and help you understand the process and the steps rather than get into the details and the intricacies of each step. I'm going to try to use this one. So the first thing we need to think about is there's actually 3 agencies that have some purview of land use, water use infrastructure. The first one starts as LAFCO. So you have to ask yourself, what is LAFCO's roles and responsibilities? And by state law, they oversee boundary changes, sphere adjustments to cities and special districts. LAFCO can order cities and special districts to annex territory. That's in fact what they do. They order the annexation and to provide service. So But this is as far as it went, in the absence of any of these other things I'll talk about in a minute. Once an area is annexed into the district, we have a legal obligation to serve. That's very important. What is the city's roles and responsibilities? And I say city, really, we serve 2 cities and technically some undeveloped areas in Contra Costa County and Alameda County as well. Their role is to conduct land use planning. Sometimes that planning is done before annexation, sometimes afterwards, but it evolves. They set long-range development policies, they prepare and adopt general plans, they prepare the EIR, environmental documents with input from us on special projects. And they're the ones that actually approve the projects and give the builder an entitlement to build a project, whether it be a commercial unit or a subdivision for a home. The district's role is to provide water supply assessments. We provide information to the decision makers, both the LAFCO and the cities. We put together, and this happens at a number of points in the process, but basically we provide this information after it's reviewed by you, after it's reviewed by the public. They have a chance to comment on it. Basically, what we do is prepare our services that are sufficient to serve the general plan needs of the cities and communities we serve. Ultimately, we issue these things called will serve letters, and I'll get to those in a little bit. That's near the final step in the entitlement process, but the district at the end of the day still has the authority to control how the development is legally entitled to be served. We still have some authority in the face of a water supply shortage to control the timing and constrain the way in which we serve. Ultimately, we have to provide full service, but we have some authority in the command process.
How long can we delay that?
You can delay that as long as
Substantiate the need for it.
And of course, the minute you do that, you will be challenged, and your words are absolutely right on, and to be able to substantiate those.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. I'm not sure what kind of limitations are on us.
Okay, so let's talk about planning. Let's not focus on DSRSD, the steps we go through in our water supply planning. The foundational document has evolved to be building water management plans. The last one we did was, and these are done in years beginning with 0 and 5, although the state may defer that a little bit, they're coming up. So our last one was done in 2010. Guess what? That was before the drought. The next one will be done in 2015. As I said, that may be extended a year, so we may be doing it in 2016. But that's the foundation. Everything else tiers from that. It takes information from that urban water management plan and uses it. And I'll go through more details of this a little bit. At the time of annexation, we prepare a plan of services for LAFCO's consideration, exactly how we're going to serve the proposed area. We have a settlement agreement that's a very complex agreement that basically was entered into in 1999 as part of the settlement for all the Dory Valley litigation. It obligates this district to go through even more analyses with regard to the water supply than other agencies have to under the law. That happens at the time of annexation. At the time of subdivision approval, as the project's working through the entitlement process with the city, we have to prepare a water supply assessment in accordance with, there's probably a government code or water code codification of that, but everybody refers to it as Senate Bill 610. And then even once that is done, before the city approves the subdivision, under the Subdivision Map Act, we have to verify, because very often there's a several-year delay in it, between the time of project approval and the time of the subdivision. We have to verify that there's a water supply. That's done under Senate Bill 221. Actually, I think one of those is an Assembly bill, one's a Senate bill. Finally, we issue a will serve letter. That usually happens after the subdivision is divided. It has a connotation that this is our commitment to serve. It has really evolved into a financing document. It's a document that the builder needs to take to the bank to get financing for the project. It's really nothing more than that. And then finally, there's this issue about there's authority we have to make a decision as to when to actually connect, even after the project's been fully cycled. So let me break this down. Urban Water Management Plan, foundational document, prepared every 5 years, uses a city, the input is a city and county general plan and amendments to that. Requires a 20-year planning horizon. We actually use a 25-year planning horizon, in other words, all the way to build out. We look at the water needs and development and make sure it works. We have to look at water shortage contingency plans. We have to develop those in the context of a plan for normal years, for single dry years, multiple dry years. There's input from the water wholesalers, from the general public. There's a public hearing and board adoption. I would comment, and then it has to be submitted to the state for compliance review. That plan, even though it was done in 2010, we basically followed that plan, multiple year contingency plan, and that to set up our drought response last year. So it is, even though it's a dated plan, it still served us very well. We actually used that plan with a few tweaks to represent some new circumstances last year. So I don't want you to think it's an archaic plan that's sitting on a shelf. It's actually being used. So then the next step is we'll have time of annexation. LAFCO requires a plan of services to be developed. We usually do that with assistance from the land use planner, the city, etc. It identifies a service provider, who's providing water, who's providing wastewater, who's providing flood control, who's providing parks and recreational services. We're one element of that kind of service, water and wastewater. It's actually, and basically the question is, can that service provider that identified meet the needs of the project? If the answer is yes, then we'll have to move forward with the project. If no, they refer it back.
If annexation isn't required because it's already there, does this step just get ignored?
That step has happened for every acre of land in the district already.
True, but now there's a whole bunch of area that's already annexed.
It's not LAFCO's purview. That'll be in the land use planning purview of the city.
That's what I'm saying. So if Tamonto's property suddenly applied to do something, it wouldn't go through with.
It would not go through LAFCO. And again, there's a public hearing in front of LAFCO. And these plan of services are not documents that are put on desk. LAFCO has to review those every 5 years. They call it the municipal services. So those are continually reviewed. Now in our 1999 settlement agreement, it's a one-time process. It happens at the time of annexation. You basically have to make the settlement agreement requires 3 key findings. More complicated than this. 3 key findings. Number 1, the project was included in the urban water management plan. The district's total water supply meets proposed project demands, and identify mitigation measures if any of those water supplies are insufficient. We went through this process for all territory that's been annexed to the district. There's very little territory remaining that needs to be annexed to the district. So this process is largely behind us as well. And again, that was all done in public. It was adopted by the board after a public hearing. We had input. Now we know that findings can be administratively challenged by parties to a settlement agreement. And in fact, when we went through one of the major ones, they were challenged. And that's actually, interestingly enough, what led to the formation of the Committee of Valley Water Retailers. Was part of the resolving the challenge that came up as a result of the project. So now we're inside the district. The city is considering a subdivision. The first analysis we have to do is what's called the water supply analysis under, I think it might be Assembly Bill, what's called Senate Bill 610. Done after annexation, after detailed land use plans are developed, but only for projects under the law that are residential projects more than 500 dwelling units, and for proposed commercial with demand equivalent to 500 dwelling units. Well, that's great, but developers are pretty creative people. There have been a lot of 495 unit subdivisions. But nevertheless, the gist of this information is actually prepared as a report. It's input information to the environmental process for the cities. Now, the reality is it has to be, here's a test, it has to be consistent with the urban management plan findings, and the key assessment is, does the project supply for the next projected supply for the next 20 years meet the projected demand for the project in normal years, single dry years, and multiple dry years? Public hearing and board adoption required. As I mentioned, there's very few projects that come through to that. On an informal basis, we do this for every single project that goes through, and we provide that information to the city. Senate Bill 221, verification of the water supply. So the city's approved the general plan, the subdivision, all the free zoning, et cetera. Now developer wants to move ahead, he wants to subdivide his property, and sometimes there's a several-year delay between those. So what Senate Bill 221 requires us to do is before that property is subdivided, that the city has to come back to us and ask us, well, you said there was water there. 2 years later, is the water really there? Again, we go through the same process and we say, yes, it is. It's applicable for 500 plus dwelling units. Doesn't happen too often, but nevertheless, we do it with the city and all the projects, and there's a public hearing, board adoption, and we provide that information to the city before their city engineer approves the project being subdivided.
So it's submitted in the form of a certified report saying, yeah, we have the
Well,
water.
if we went to a 500, it's very
Yeah.
formal, but less than that, it's pretty informal. It happens,
That's done at staff level,
it's at staff level.
on staff level.
Only
That's
that's
we get
where
to
we've
vote
never
by-
seen these.
Well, you've seen a couple of them. You've seen a couple of them. But you haven't seen too many, not because of that 500 unit, but also because, think about the recession. The recession really slowed things down. And a lot of things that are happening right now are projects that are already in the pipeline, that have been in the pipeline in some cases for a decade, and that's why you're seeing some of these things being built right now, because they were fully entitled back in 2008, 2007, et cetera.
The last one that we saw was the Dublin process, the 100 days, 87 acres. Yeah, because that's about 1,900 or something. Yeah, houses.
Hey, Bert, you're right, they're both Senate bills.
Pardon?
They're both Senate bills.
Oh,
We tried to prove you wrong, but you're right.
You know, this presentation would be also very helpful for maybe some of the new city council.
Some of all of the city council.
Right? Well, I think Doreen might. Yeah.
So let me go on to the will serve letter. As I said, this is a document that really confirms for the project proponent, and more importantly, is lender, that the project is in their service area, that we will provide water use and fire suppression services, we can provide water supply for basic health and safety, but that we reserve the right to limit that water supply to non-essential potable water uses if we need to at some point. So there is that condition built in that gives us the ability to limit it going forward. And then finally, there's a decision to connect. So all this has gone through, and sometimes over a decade or more, a lot of public review, a lot of public decisions, and then somebody walks up to a permit counter and says, guess what, I want to connect. Well, at that point in time, they are entitled to connect. In the absence of anything else, they're legally entitled to connect. And in fact, we would have a mess on our hands if we try to deny that in the absence of anything. We cannot deny it. Even at that point, we cannot deny the connection. What we can do is we can put conditions on it. We'd say, for example, well, you have a new pool in that subdivision. You can't fill the pool because that's not in conformance with our drought ordinance. You can't install outdoor landscaping at that new house, for a period of time until the drought emergency is over. But all of that stuff has to be done in accordance with board action adopted after a public hearing. Your drought ordinance last time sort of sets the stage for this, but you didn't go to the level of prohibiting new construction. So for example, cannot fill a new pool. Well, we all know about the swim center that the city is proposing. And they're just breaking ground, so they're years away from connecting, but let's accelerate that clock. If the city walked in tomorrow and said, we want to look at that new pool, we would deny that connection.
You know, they're expecting to have that pool open by the summer of 2016.
Well, if they came to us in the spring of 2016 asking for a water meter, and everything was still in place right now, we would deny that. We would not
They
issue a
have
water
three pools, not just,
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's it's a perfect example of long-range planning, because I was surprised when I saw the extent of the water activities planned for that.
Now, let me-
But that's
let me
also
correct
been-
what I said.
that's
We
already
would-
been done.
Let me correct what I said. We would not deny it immediately. But once we gave them a meter, they could not fill the pool because of the drought ordinance. If you wanted us to consider holding back on the meters, I need board action, it has to go through an ordinance, you have to have a public hearing. And you can't do it for just that one thing, you have to look globally at the whole city situation, so.
Can I know any of this?
Yes.
No. Let me ask you a question. Hasn't this project already been approved? Wasn't it approved a long time ago? They just put it on the back burner?
Well,
No, they were waiting.
No, but the project was.
The project was part of the general plan.
Right.
And the general plan was incorporated in the urban water management plan.
Right.
And so it has been included in the total demands for our service area.
The pool included, the pool
But-
included.
but
They added the pool though.
it doesn't matter if we said, according to what this says, if they came to the counter and said, okay, we're ready to fill it, because of the drought, we could tell them no.
We can tell them, we would tell them, we staff has absolutely no discretion in that based on the.
We would tell them.
Right. And the only way, you know, if they said, no, we don't like that, we would say, come and deal with the board.
And there's 3 pools.
Well, the thing is, like, the project was already,
Doesn't
was
matter.
already, I know, but I'm saying is that their feeling is the project was already approved, so I don't think they realize that there's a whole.
I'm sure they do.
That's why.
Depends on
At
who
least
they
at
is.
the, right.
Yeah.
I'm sure at the council
Somebody
level,
knows there.
We're
they
going to be
don't.
facing that coming down.
Okay, so let's move on. So
Recycled water.
current situation. Well, you know, interestingly enough, we said, I didn't comment on that.
I know.
Our recycled water is actually, you can legally use that in swimming pools, according to the state health department and the regional board.
It wouldn't allow us to put it in the groundwater, it sure as hell ain't gonna allow us to put it in a pool.
The current situation, the urban water management plan has to be updated, and has to be updated in 2015, probably more like 2016, when it's still over. It'll reflect new information on the water supply reliability that we've learned over the last couple of years. We don't have any annexations in the process. Some territory remains outside the boundary of the district or within our sphere, but those are really long ways away. So all the process associated with the LAFCO plan of services, et cetera, that, and the settlement agreement, that's all kind of behind us. We will be focusing on things within the district. The entire district sphere of influence has been through the settlement agreement process, I said that. So the challenge was received and resolved, resulted in the formation of the Committee of Valley Water Retailers. So that whole process is behind us. Most subdivisions going through right now are below the 500-unit subdivision. That's reality. The district informally consults with the city as a manner of notice for the requirements. So will serve letters are properly conditioned to give the district discretion as the events arise, delay the connections, temporarily impose service constraints. So that's the process. So the real, and you know, Director Van Eater, Leopold, I know you brought this up for informational purposes for the board. But the real purpose here is, or the real issue is, given the drought conditions, does this board wish to have us start thinking about delaying approval of entitled connections or temporarily constraining those services or not? Now, before you even answer that, let me go on, because there are pros and cons. That's the key issue, I think. Considerations and implications. A short-term remedy is not a long-term cure. You know, you have droughts come and go. You know, they do come and go. So I'm not sure you want to be making long-term decisions based on short-term issues. Keep in mind that if you were to stop these, connection fee revenue will dry up. It will not only be your water connection fee revenue, but maybe the pool center will be a little bit different animal. But for other projects, residential projects, it will also dry up sewer connection fee revenue. I remind you, we have about $3 million in debt service to pay on the water system, about $7 million a year to pay on wastewater. You would have no choice but to impose another tip on the order of significantly more than what we were looking at before, in both water and wastewater. It would jeopardize the AA credit rating to do that. And furthermore, to be effective, to be truly effective, this water supply is a hole in the valley. You could stop things in Dublin, and it doesn't affect things unless it happens in Valley Water. That's my way of saying, I don't believe this agency is the agency to make that decision. I believe that decision, if it's to be made, in managing the water supply, that's a decision you make as a site. So conclusions, as the project proceeds through the entitlement process, a lot of opportunities for coordination for water supply. At the very beginning of the urban water management plan, throughout the process, at the end of the process was a final opportunity, there's a final control knob at the end of the process. These things are done with ample opportunities for public involvement, policymaker decisions, both at your board and at the city council, at the block or at every stage of the project. And a final analysis, once the project's in the pipe, you can delay or temporarily constrain it, but you cannot delay it forever. For new projects that are coming through that are being looked at by the city, you can double back to the formal 610 process or informally. But again, even in those cases, it's not us making those decisions, short of you passing an ordinance. We provide the information to the city and the consequence of the drought we're facing, they make those decisions.
Good item. Thank you, Georgine.
A couple of final observations. Almost all projects in the service area today that you see being built out there, and people say, why can that house be connected, is because it was entitled back in 2007 or 2008. There's just a lot in the pipeline right now. That's a remnant of the recession, which created significant delays. It's also a remnant of something we did ourselves. We extended the capacity rates. The capacity rates used to have a finite 3-year life, and they would have expired. Part of the logic is you didn't want people to have capacity rates as time when you didn't have capacity. Well, right on the heels of recession, a drought hit, and now we have a situation where those capacity rates are in effect, and they are legal rights the developer has to commit. So, that's information, but if you were to give us direction, we would certainly take that.
Excellent. This one.
Well, it's too bad we couldn't convince the city to have a little bit of a workshop on this, so that it didn't look like we were.
Well, I don't know, it's not too late to do that.
No, I don't think it's too late. I just don't want it to seem like, we want to make a presentation so you know what you legally can do and what we legally can do. If we say it like that, or if it appears like that, they're not going to listen.
Right.
But this is something they really need to know, and I know they don't.
I think given the amount of water that's been planned for that new park, it's so far above and beyond what the normal project would consider to, and with a hatch profile, I think in the interest of being a friendly partner to them, we need to make them aware of the ramifications of what the drought has done. I mean, that background has been set. The drought, everybody is aware of it, so it's not like it's coming out of the blue. But as Georgine just said, I can guarantee you there's staff members down there and certain council members that they're not thinking of this. It's not that they're totally blind, they're just not thinking about it. And that's just thousands and thousands of gallons of water that's going to be.
Well, there's 2 pools.
Right for that park.
The 3 pools. The 3 pools are huge. The 2 pools.
And given our drought policy, we just can't ignore that.
If you fill them once, after that, it's basically no different than a lawn.
But
This
to
has a
fill them
whole, this has a
once,
whole higher.
filling them once, yeah, and it's going to be the public perception. If we're still in a drought, when this opens up, if it indeed does open up on time in the spring of 2016, where we were this past year, everybody's going to look a little foolish.
Well, we've been certainly all invited to
Yeah.
the groundbreaking.
Well, the contractor they have is the one that's done our
Our
streets.
stuff, yeah.
Well, they're good contractors, and whatever the schedule is calling for in the contract, I'm sure they'll meet it.
You're right, I hadn't even thought of that, but you're right, it's over, so,
Yeah, they're not gonna have any weather delays.
no.
Unfortunately.
I think in all honesty, we should just be very honest with them and say, hey, let's look at this now versus later.
Well, I think
Versus
it's
let it
an
fester.
outreach type thing.
Yeah,
so
outreach.
let's, we just want to make you aware of what's coming down the pipe.
As I said, I've had those conversations with our senior staff. You know, and they're looking down the road. I haven't heard the 2016, which is 12, less than 12 months ago. I haven't heard that many, but, you know, their thinking was, you know, by that time droughts come and go in cycles, and
It's probably going to be in
I just,
2017.
I just heard this date last Thursday night at the Heritage and Cultural Arts Commission.
Oh, no, I've known about this because of
I
that.
thought it was a- I thought
Not
it was
the
a full
opening
two-year
date, the
project.
opening,
I think it's 2017.
It's 2017 because they're
But
just
regardless,
starting
so-
this year. But yeah, 2017 is around the
But
corner.
keep in mind, you know, the disc here, so we have drought ordinance in place, which prevents filling up swimming pools. They can come and apply for a variance for that if they want, it's a decision to grant it. We cannot withhold the water meter.
Right.
They are legally entitled to a water meter unless you pass an ordinance that is, you know, sort of globally assessing the water situation. There's some pretty significant consequences of that. And I'm not sure how effective that would be if DSRSD were to do that rather than this.
No, but if we gave them, suppose nobody said anything, and we gave them their water meter, and then said, oh, by the way, the current drought conditions say you can't fill a pool. That's nice, their water fountains will work, and so will all the cafeterias.
I understand that, but I need some help from you, because the drought ordinance right now expires on June 30th of this year. So when they come to us and say, well, can we fill up the pool next year? The answer is, well, until the board takes action to extend the drought ordinance, there's not a drought ordinance.
Right.
So you can fill it up.
Understood.
Should we have a workshop with them then?
I think we're fixated on the sign issue. They drained the pool to high school because they broke glass in it right in the middle of the
Yes,
shop.
but we gave them a special
Right,
dispensation.
and we'll give the
because
city a special dispensation.
For 3 pools?
Yes, they'll turn it down, do the appeal, it'll be a festival speech, okay, so we're not gonna not fill the aquatic center.
Okay, so let me be Mr. Brown here, you know, we're talking about water policy at a high level. If we're talking about the swimming pool, we really need to agendize that as a special discussion.
And I would urge us not to do that. This is so far out in the future. We're wrapping ourselves around the axle of something that
I
may not happen.
agree, but I still believe if we do nothing other than to make sure everybody has copies of these slides, we should do something. We should make them aware of the
And I
consequences.
think staff has heard that.
Okay.
I'm more interested in, these things are in the pipe. I mean, from what I've heard tonight, there's not much you can do, there's not much we should do for the already entitled projects.
Right. That's.
And I know we always do a good job of it, but I want a super good job of the next urban water management plan. And I want that thing held back until we can, all the stuff from the first meeting needs to be kind of baked enough to be able to intelligently do that. Because that's the tool we use to fight future battles if we have them. And then you can fight them early enough to where, you know, you'll be able to stand on.
Absolutely agree. I totally agree with you. And other than to make them aware, I don't think we can do anything right now because we don't know if there's going to be a drought.
Yeah, we don't know anything yet. So all I was counseling, let's not get all worked up over that. We gotta-
I'm not getting, I'm just saying I think they should know.
Well, there you go. Bert's told them.
Brooks told staff. Is it our responsibility to talk to the council?
Feel free. I will leave that to individual board members'
Right,
discretion.
that's what I'm saying.
No, I think your direction here is the staff continue to communicate with the city, and just a reminder. I think it should be a reminder. I'm with Georgina. I mean, yes, it's 2 years away, but 2 years you're going to be here before you know it.
And I think it needs to be on their radar.
It's the biggest project
At the
in
very
Dublin.
least.
And they're
It's the
so,
biggest project in Dublin.
they're so excited about it, you know?
One of the caution, because one of the principles of this agency is served us very well over a number of decades, is don't get involved in land use planning,
Right.
be involved in water supply planning.
Absolutely, and that's why we've never said, that's why we've always continuously said that when it comes to the land use planning part, we weren't involved. We were only here to serve if we were told to serve. Well, that sounded really good for the last 20 years because we had the ability to serve. Now it's questionable. Do we have the ability anymore? I don't know. I don't 100%.
I need that feedback from the board, because right now, the way things stand is after June 30th.
Right.
I'm dividing this issue very carefully, but after June 30th, these restrictions go away.
I understand.
But
And maybe part of it is we wait till June 30th in order to make that determination. But I don't want to make it anyway. You're right. I think it needs to come from the Zone 7, or it needs to come from the city council level.
Tri-Valley Retail.
Or, yeah, well, Tri-Valley Retail is technically in Zone 7 doesn't, but, and obviously Pleasanton doesn't think the issue is bad enough to continue their drought conditions. But this is our city, and I want to be open and really transparent to our own city. You know, if it were San Ramon, I'd say the same thing. I think we owe them a little bit more than we owe the cities of Pleasanton and Livermore. Just make sure the staff knows, and I'll make sure the council knows.
All right.
What else do you need?
Anything else you want to give us?
Roll that tape.
Figure out the problem. I mean, figure out the solution. We know what the problem is.
Have you talked to Chris about it?
We're coming up on the Academy Award level length here. Is this agenda item been exhausted?
Is it what?
Are we done with this agenda item?
Yes. Anything else on that? Board member items, reports, I think we already have them. This time we'll be going into closed session.
I actually
I
have a.
understand that.
I attended the Chamber of Commerce Economic Development meeting last week, or last month, February 5th. They decided to open up for the first time the Economic Development Committee, hold the meetings at the city offices, and make sure they're inviting the entire economic development contingency out there, which means businesses, school people, anyone that can be impacted by economic development, rather than just have a closed committee of the board of directors of the chamber as it's been in the past. Their first speaker this year was David Stark, Director of Governmental Affairs for East Bay Realtors, and some of you probably heard him in the past. He's spoken several times. But of course, from a real estate perspective, Dublin's doing everything right. All the median sales prices in 12 it was $598, in 13 it was $740, in 14 it was up to $829. So from that perspective, we're increasing, we're doing wonderfully. Our sales are up. We can use Prop 60 and 90 in Dublin, in Alameda County, so that makes Alameda County more of an economic, more of a place that has older people looking to retire in and stay in, because you can transfer that Prop 13 value. 116 houses sold for more than $1 million last year. So, like I said, there's nothing quite like a realtor to tell you how everything's going, but from that area, Dublin's doing everything right. The other meeting I attended was the executive committee for the Alameda County Special Districts Association. Much of what we talked about was the planning for the dinner. I've been asked to see if I can get Eric to speak on cybersecurity, being that most of the districts are small enough to have cybersecurity issues, but not large enough to have, major security companies coming in and helping them protect their information. So we thought that would be a good thing. All the districts are going to be asked to bring their typical basket to the dinner. Again, it's the 25th, so they want things to look like the 25th, to represent that. It's actually kind of hard to believe we've been here for 25 years, because I remember the starting of this, and when certain people from New York City Council and what's the sanitation agency down there?
Union Sand.
Yeah, Union Sand. We're trying to get special districts on the LAPCO board back in their old days. So we've come a long way. We're rewriting the bylaws at the current time, and future meetings we hope to have Greg Chen from East Bay Mud to talk, have someone from East Bay Regional Parks talk, and then have someone from mosquito abatement and what's the other one? The one that deals with rats, vector control. Have them speak at a couple of meetings, because we don't hear from them as much. They're not in the news as much, but there has been a problem with rabies in the district, in the county, I should say, and so they wanted to get updated on that. I think that's probably about it. Oh, we're going to be asking Central Sand to assist in setting up the Alameda County Special Districts webpage on the California Special District webpage. Is that right? Yes. Central Sand has a beautiful webpage set up for Contra Costa County Special Districts. It has a little bit about each of the special districts and all the people that represented, and it talks a little bit about the history of Contra Costa. And so we're going to ask them to help us set it up too. And then they're going to be looking for someone long-term that can manage it, which obviously has to be some of the bigger districts. So I think that was it, and then I already reported on the water policy roundtable. So that's all from my corner.
Okay, I only have one. Mine's simply a statement that needs to be included in the minutes. I want to publicly announce that in closed session C, conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, potential water supply contract. The negotiating parties are East Bay Mud, Yuba County Water Agency, and also a DSRSD. Since I am a salaried employee of East Bay Mud, and as such I am recusing myself of any participation in discussions, decisions, and/or voting of this potential DSRSD water supply contract with East Bay Mud, to ensure that I neither influence nor attempt to influence another member of the DSRSD board regarding any matters pertinent to the contract consistent with applicable provisions of this government code.
And Director Duarte, given your action on the consent calendar, we do not have session on that.
Yes, at this time, the board will be going into closed session for items 11B and C only. And adjourn to the closed session.
Well.
So see you tomorrow, great? Yeah. Is that what you're about? Yes. You got sure you want to close session?
No.
See you tomorrow, Judy. Take care.
We only had C.
It's, again, it was.
It's done.
Yeah, grounds. And we're having to try and comply with it.
At the end of the whole thing, it really off.
It's late, you know,